Welcome back to our maintenance series of videos. In this part 3 we mainly work on the mast. Firstly, reinstalling the two mast fittings for the gooseneck and the vang, reconstructing all 6 spreaders after I dismantled and cleaned them last autumn, installing a new wind instrument cable inside the mast, adding 2 mast steps at the top of the mast, resoldering the masthead navigation light, and finally we look to improve the way the cabin floorboards are secured down. So these are the backing plates for the gooseneck and vang pieces that go on the mast. These go behind it inside the mast. As you see, they've got these threaded inserts which, when I pull the screws out, half of them ripped out, so I'm going to have to pull them out and replace them. So last night, or yesterday, I painted these with zinc primer, which is zinc phosphate. It's supposed to be zinc chromate. Anyway, zinc based paint, and today we are going to put in the little helicoils. A little bit of Loctite on them because we want these locked in place. Now it's quite simple, you just put them in where you threaded it before, twist them round. As you twist, it actually tightens them, so, or loosens them in the hole. There we go, like that. Then you're left with a little tab inside which this fork went in, and for that little tab we knock it out with just a normal punch. So you just punch it in the middle, pop, and that little tab comes out. You see it? Now we have aluminium, stainless steel thread, and when we put stainless steel screws into it, it won't lock up with corrosion. So I'm going to do the rest of those. I'll put it on time lapse. So just before I knock all the tabs off, I'm just going to check an M8 bolt in them, make sure it does go through okay. Today I've cleared the space where the spreaders were. We put them in the car. Just getting them from the boat to the car is a big effort. And there we are, all nicely loaded in the pickup. Off to East Coast rigging! Last autumn we took the spreaders apart and found quite a bit of corrosion, particularly where the stainless steel end fittings were inside the aluminium bars. This is East Coast Marine rigging. I love their workshop. Okay, let's fill it full of spreaders. I found a little space here, put my things. There, they can sit next to the new rigging here so they can get acquainted. Look at that lovely shiny rigging. Nice. Quite a dent in my bank balance, but nice. Meanwhile, on the mast, we are, or I am, going to put these backing plates back in behind this where the gooseneck goes, so we can put the gooseneck and the vang plate back on again. Rebuilding at last. You may remember that when we removed the gooseneck and vang fittings last autumn, we found quite a bit of corrosion under them that needed to be attended to. I'm going to take my watch off because it doesn't fit in that hole. So let's put this one in first. Okay, take the screws out. Now, will it go back in as easy as it came out? Let's see. Aha! Aha! There we go. One little screw in place. Now this one is a little bit trickier because we have to get this lip underneath the lip here. Now, oh no, it fits in beautifully. Sometimes I am amazed how easy things are. Now all those holes lined up. Oh, isn't that sweet looking through there and seeing all those nice new helical inserts. Love it. So I'm going to paint zinc chromate underneath here on this damaged area. I want to mask it off. I've drawn around it roughly like that so I know where to put the masking tape. Let me put this back on, line up the holes, draw again. I do find masking off quite a pleasurable pastime. Okay, so now I don't want paint right up to the edge, and if you look, we don't really need paint right up to the edge, because that's not so bad. So I'm going to go about 4 or 5 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch in, like this. So that will get me covered there without actually being able to see the paint the other side of the fitting. That's the area I want to spray. I'm just going to widen it up a bit. Okay, now I do not want any spray except where I want the spray, of course. So this is going to be like surgery. I'm going to cover the patient, tape to the tape. Okay, let's just get some antiseptic around the wound. We don't want any infections in there from grease. So a bit of acetone. Okay, that's ready for dissection. Yes, I should definitely have been a nurse in an operating theatre. Okay, doctor, patient's ready. Make sure he's completely anaesthetised. We'll just rub him up a little bit so the scalpel's got something to dig into. If you ever need any holes filling in, I'm your man. I'll just push them in a little bit because I do want to get some paint around the edges of these holes. Okay, here we go. Ready? Remember the spray? Lots of thin coats. So I'll be coming back every half an hour just to top that up with another coat, so we've got 2 or 3 on. I'm now playing garage mechanic. I am putting on the pole fitting here, or replacing it after I cleaned it up. So I have to be very careful here because there's backing nuts behind here that can slide up and down. So there's no way I could do this with the mast vertically for sure. Plates here are going to get a bit of lana coat, which will then hopefully seal them against the aluminium. I don't have to worry about Loctite because these have got lock nuts. You might ask, very sensibly, why don't I just turn the mast the other way? Well, I would love to, but it weighs over a ton, and it's certainly not something I can do by myself. Nice. Just in case you didn't get a good view of what I was doing there, this is the traveller. It goes all the way up and down the front of the mast to take the pole on the front. So the gooseneck placement is now all operated on, painted. I have masked off the vang section here, and we are going to use the same operating gown, being a cheaper end of the medical establishment. We don't like to waste. I've just taken the masking tape off. It looks pretty good. We don't seem to have got any spray where we don't want it to be. Fittings on. You shouldn't see any army coloured paint. I hope not, because one will go crazy if she sees that green. She doesn't like army green. Look, perfect. Now you see it? There you go. Wonderful. Not a bad job. Still a little bit tacky, but that's fine. Yeah. With some lana coat over that, it should really be protected for next time. Not that I ever want it to be a next time. So today we've got a bit of a floorboard project going off. Previously, or as it is at the moment, Hallberg Rassy screwed the floorboards in with these nice screws here, which is fine for the first 10-15 times, but floorboards that come up quite regularly, the screws end up getting longer and longer and longer until even those don't grip. So I want to change to bolts, and I have bought a whole bunch of these slotted insert screws for wood. The idea being that these little things screw into the holes in the joists, and then normal bolts like these will screw into here. So it's really just like having a nut in the floor that you can screw into, rather than using these little screws. Obviously these are stronger as well, and hopefully it'll mean that I can put them in time and time and time and time and time again without them coming out. Now the question is, do I have to glue these things in as well as just screw them? And I think I will. I think I'm going to put some epoxy on them. And I've got this little jig set up, which is basically a bolt and 2 nuts locked together, which I put them in with using a ratchet. You just have to make sure the first bit you go in straight. Otherwise you end up cockeyed and you'll never get the bolt in. The other thing I'm using to make sure that I'm dead straight is this little device, which is pretty neat. It means you drill through and you hold this flat, and then you're guaranteed to get your hole at right angles, because these nuts are going to have to be dead at right angles to the floorboard, otherwise these bolts are not going to go in. Got it? Okay, let's get going. Mix up some epoxy. I'm going to use my favorite 610 epoxy. I normally like to mix up my epoxies inside the boat, but for some reason Juana doesn't like me doing that. And although she's not here, she always manages to find out when I'm naughty. I'm starting on the most inaccessible corner of the floorboard, just in case it all goes wrong. Just put a little bit of epoxy around the insert. I've already drilled the 7mm hole there. I might have to run thread tap through this afterwards just to get the epoxy out. I've only got 100 of these to do, so it shouldn't take too long. Okay, so it's going in. I'm going to make sure that nut does back off of it, okay? I'm going to try to get it just below the floor line, like the German lady floor line. By the way, this was me experimenting with a slightly smaller one. I decided that's no good. I need M5, not M4. So I'm now just going to get a bolt and just screw it through, just to make sure the excess epoxy that might be in the middle there is not. So I'll be able to tap out a little bit, but I won't be able to tap out if it's full of epoxy. It seems to be pretty clean. And that's all I'm going to do for now. I'll just experiment and check it does actually hold down the floorboards and doesn't just pull out like the last ones did. So this morning's a sweltering day outside, so I am in a nice cool workshop with the only employee. Hello! Are you the only employee today? And I have the operating table set up for spreader rebuild. Look, I even have a seat. This is just wonderful. I'm putting all the ends on the spreaders. This is one I started last time, and I've put HDP plastic now between the stainless and the aluminium. We have got 6 of these to do, so it's going to be quite a while. So I'm using stainless steel rivets, 1/4 inch. Riggers like to use Monel, but the riggers here say that Monel absolutely destroys their rivet guns. They're just too strong, and they don't need to be that strong. I'm also going to use this very nasty stuff, Dulac, which actually has a chemical composition to stop the corrosion between the metals. It's very nasty stuff. It's actually banned in the United States. Okay, I've come back from my first trip from the boat. I have now armed myself with gloves, because this stuff, Durac, is nasty. I hate working in gloves, but do not want to get cancer. So I'm just putting this Durac just around the part of the rivet that actually goes through the aluminium, because the rest of it will go through stainless steel, so that's not a problem. Knock them into place, and then we rivet. Simple as that. Just wipe off the excess of this nasty stuff. So while I'm using Dulac, this one, on the rivets, on the pieces that actually go in, I'm coating them with lana coat, because Dulac is good stuff, but it tends to dry out, whereas this stuff does not dry. It's basically a thick natural grease. So I'm just putting lana coat in the end here now, quite a generous helping. There's this fitting done here. Now I need the plastic that goes over it. Nicely cut out. That's a piece of HDPE I'm putting over the top. Then more lana coat where it's actually going to touch this end. Don't care if it squeezes out everywhere, I'll clean up later. I do want to make sure is that wherever this stainless is touching the aluminium, we have a moisture barrier. Now, small hole goes on the aft side. In you go. Perfect. Double check this measurement here because this is fairly critical. If I get this wrong, it's got to be 142.5 millimeters. Good, we're there. Okay, rivet gun. One now. Two. Last job is to knock the ends of the rivets out, because otherwise they come out and they start rattling around in the rig and rusting. So basically I'm punching out the other end of that mandrel which broke off. So this is the fun part. Let's see if you can see. I've only got these holes here to get them all out of. Where's one last one? Come on. Where'd you come away? I think that was it. Yay. Another one finished. Okay, 2 down, 4 to go. So I just have to go away and find these, because I left them in the pickup, and if we forget to put these in now, they will never go in. These just slot into front of the spreader like this to protect the spreader from ropes taking off the anodizing. I kept reminding myself, if I didn't put them in now, there'd be trouble, and there almost was. End of the day, 4 done, the 2 big bottom ones to do. They're looking pretty nice. So Steve, my rigger, I asked him about HDPE plastic behind these gooseneck fittings, and he gave me this. It's actually protective wrap for roofing. So he says it's very UV, it's nice and thin, and it goes on like a dream. I've just put this on here, and I'm just trimming around the edges. Hey, look at that, slick. You can't see it. It's absolutely sealed tight to the metal, so no water's going to get behind there for a while. I like it. Okay, for this one I'm going to put it on time lapse so we can watch it go on. It better work. Hope it's not going to drip black stuff all over the deck, or I'll be calling Steve in East Coast Rigging and say, hey mate. Okay, so that's 2 done. So finally comes the day where we put the gooseneck and vang back on. So although I've sprayed that, I am still going to put lana coat over it. This stuff does not move, does not let moisture through, and like I say, it smells like old sheep. As the boat's named after a New Zealand wine, and we're going to New Zealand, I think it's only appropriate that it smells a little bit like old sheep. On it goes. That's well lubricated. So I've just got them all in lightly, really as a test, because I've still got to put Loctite on, so they'll come back out again. I just want to do a dry run before I put Loctite in there. It looks good. I'll also embed these with some Sikaflex or something to seal the screw up there. So we're sealed here, we're sealed around here with lana coat and that rubber. It should therefore pretty corrosion proof under there. Give you a slightly different view on this one. I'm just going to pull out all these bits of masking tape I left in here. See in there, look, they've used riveted nuts. I guess because the goosenecks take so much more force, they decided to do it with backing plates. Trust in Selden, as they say, until your mast falls down, like ours nearly did. Oh, Lanacoat, Lanacoat. I'm going to make a song up about Lanacoat. So this one here, I couldn't get in. Let's just put a tap in and see what we got. I might have some corrosion or something in there. There was something in there. Okay, let's try again. Look at that, the mast is looking like it's back into one piece again. It's all coming together. Okay, spreader rebuild part 2. Actually, if you consider the taking them off the mast, de-riveting them, cleaning them out, bringing them here, it's more like part 25A. Anyway, these are the bottom spreaders, the big ones. No more complexity than the others, they've just got these little things here for the spreader lights. So I'll put it on time lapse and we will see if we can capture the whole thing. GoPro. For this lower spreader, I filmed the whole process. So if you don't want to see my imitation of a Chinese factory worker on speed, then please fast forward by a couple of minutes. If you do watch, it's quite interesting to see the large pile of rivets gradually decrease to nothing. In all, 250 rivets were used to reconstruct all 6 spreaders. Thank goodness I had the pneumatic rivet gun from East Coast Marine Rigging. There we are, one big spreader done. Man, that is some satisfaction. Unlike Mick Jagger, I get satisfaction. That's me done. All 6 spreaders, ready to take them home. Pretty pleased with the way they've come out, I have to say. Today I'm on the mast. I'm going to change out this wind instrument transducer socket and its cable. It's kind of okay, but inside the pins are pretty corroded, and I've got a nice new one down here. I just need to make sure it's long enough before I go attempting to pull it all through. I think this is going to be another case of numpty electrician. He's put the screw here into alloy and I bet this won't come out. Let's see. Yeah, as suspected, it's come off, but left the screw in there. Don't you just hate it when they do that? Okay, so we're right through. Came out the other side, so I've just got to work out what length I need this end. So I'm going to pull it right through, and then I'll pull back what I need. I think that's the way to do it. Okay, now I'm just trying to work out how much wire we need. See how one thing always leads to another. I was just going to put in the Windex line, then I got carried away onto this. Classic. This is the LOPO masthead light. I had replaced the light 2 years ago and soldered it to the cable while up the mast on the riding belt. Not the ideal conditions for soldering. So I decided to take a look at my previous work and decide whether it needed to be resoldered or not. I'll tell you what, let's make the decision. This will be the decision maker. Bam, bam, bam. It's amazing what you start to see when you look closely. You see this locking eye here for the top of the mast. The bolt goes in here and holds the top of the mast on. It should be equally inside that ring. And if you look inside, it is actually slightly bent away from the metal. So I don't think that's that good. I don't think they put that on properly, or it's starting to actually move. One thing we can't have is the pressure of the mast just on the rivets. The pressure of the mast is supposed to be on that hole there. So I decided to be safe, take them all off and see what was going on inside there. So there's a fair bit of corrosion under there, so they didn't have it tight against that space, which is why it wasn't right into this hole. So I'm glad we took that off. Now I'm going to clean it up. Now it's clean, let's see how it sits in there. That is much better, that's how it's supposed to be. So I've got all the fittings off from both sides, all nice and clean. I'm just going to get some of this corrosion off with the wire brush and clean it up, and then hopefully tomorrow I'll put them back on again. All nice and neat this time. And finally we polish it all off. Yeah, there's still some corrosion there. Generally it looks pretty damn good now. The final act in the theatre of the spreaders is to put all these ends, something like this. That'll be the last act of cleaning them up. Should go and put those up on the boat. We'll put some red Loctite. Red Loctite being 271, meaning not permanent, but pretty permanent. Don't need too much of this. Just a couple of drips in its thread. Normally does the trick. So I just found a couple of these threads in this end are stiff, I guess because of the Loctite they've had in them before. So I'm just running a tap through them because I have to get these screws. I can only get these screws in by hand to start with, so I really need them to go in easy. So that's it, we're done. The spreaders are finished. Ends on, re-riveted, polished, decorroded. That is a big job to tick off the list. That was a big job doing that. So the final resting place of the spreaders is on the side deck, where they'll be until the autumn. And last night I finished the masthead. We've moved the wind instrument fitting there. It was on there before. We've replaced the pulleys inside, they're all new. And to cover up all the corrosion and the thousands of holes that were through this thing, we put the top plate on. I've got studs here for the Pacific antenna. They now go through from the back, so they are all on helical coils. These two just hold down the plate at the back, and then the Windex is there right in the middle for once. So we're not going to get any water down the mast anymore. We've got fittings that aren't touching aluminium. Windex is in a better place, and I'm in a better place for having done it. We're happy. Now don't be laughing, I've just drilled this hole in this wooden block because summer has returned and I need to do some things on the mast without getting completely frazzled by the sun. Today I'm going to put the mast steps on about here, and I'm going to put the LOPO light back on and solder it. Let's look at why I wanted to put two mast steps on top of the mast. Going up the mast with the spinnaker halyard, which is the highest halyard, the maximum height I can get to puts my face about level with the top of the mast. This is really not high enough to work on antennas and other things above the mast. But with something to step on at the appropriate height, I can get that little bit higher, which should make all the difference. I've decided I want to have the mast top about at chest height when I'm on the steps. Any higher than chest height, you don't have an option to put a safety loop around the top of the mast. It gets a little bit high. And I'm going to go into the thickest part of the mast here so I can get insert coils in. Okay, there's a punch. Remember, measure 3 times, cut or drill once. Okay, here we go. I hate drilling holes in my mast, but it's got to be done. Don't push through too hard because I've got conduit behind there. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, Check again, not that we need to anymore because it's pointless, we've already done the holes. Let's get this hole tapped. Now normally if it's steel I would go in with some oil. With aluminium it's not too bad. So we put the threaded insert on the tool like this with a little lug going through there. I'm going to put some red Loctite on it because we do not want these coming out again. Okay, then we just put them in gently like this, going in like a dream. So it's now completely inside, ready for the bolt. Now we have to knock the little tail off there, which you knocked it in with. Just a one quick bang with a hammer, and it's gone. There we are. Now we're screwing stainless steel into stainless steel. No corrosion. Good. Let's do the next one. Of course, I don't have screws short enough for this, so I'm going to have to work out how long to cut these. So I'll go and get my grinder and we'll show you how I cut bolts. So this is what you need to cut bolts short. The bolts themselves, I always thread on a nut first, because if you burr the end, the nut will help it come off. I put here how much I want to take off. So it was about 1 centimetre. So I'll do a little bit more. Then I hold the end I actually want to cut off tight, like that. And then I grind it off. Now this is an interesting little device. It goes on the drill, and with its 3 blades, it can put a nice bevel on the end of anything round. A bit like a countersink, but in reverse. So let's get that nut off, like that. Now you notice all the burrs and everything on the end of that bolt? Okay, watch this. Hang on. There you go, now it's got a nice bevel on it, you see? That goes on, perfect. But anyway, is it enough? So there's plenty of thread through there into the mast, so it's going to be just fine. And the last thing I want is that end piece touching the next bit inside the mast. So I'll put it onto time lapse and we'll do the others. Okay, there we go. 4 screws, exactly the length we need. Let's go put them in. Measure twice, drill once. This time I'm going to do something slightly different. I'm going to use a countersink just to round those edges off a little bit. It's funny, over here at the other boat there's a husband and wife, and it's quite funny listening to them. Honey, what did you do with the flashlight? Honey, why did you stop holding it? Honey, where have you gone now? I don't know what you want. Well, listen to me. Are you finished yet? Honey, pass me the spanner. Honey, the spanner. No, the spanner, not the screwdriver. It's quite funny. Red Loctite. Hole. Insert. Push. Turn. Okay, they're both in there. Very good. So on the back of these I've got some of this roofing, like butyl stuff, which the rigger gave me, Stephen. I've got some HDPE. I'm putting lana coat around the actual screw head where it's going to touch up against that aluminium, and blue Loctite on the actual thread. Hopefully I'll get it in before I drop it. Oh, I knew I'd do that. Ah, come here, you little bastard. Gravel should be banned in boat yards, really. It should. It should be smooth concrete, painted. Maybe I should start off a petition. These little steps, they're magnetic. Donk! can have a closer look. So you can see the butyl tape there, you can see the HDPE plastic. That clips away, nice and flush, no ropes can get past it at all. It's a little bit close to the shroud fixtures, but I think it's far enough away. Anyway, that's the height I wanted it, and I went in, this line here is basically the thickest part of the mast. I went in just below because I didn't want to risk going through into where the sail is. And it's about halfway from front to back, so it's perfect. Let's go put the other one in. I'd like to be able to put my weight on that to check it, but the mast is at a slightly wrong angle. Job done! The next job, under my little sun brolly here, is to solder the LOPO masthead navigation light on the top, ready for reinstallation. So I have all my heat shrink threaded on there. Now I've got to get these wires exposed. Sorry, I'm a bit old school on wires. I don't do wire cutters. An old habit from work. Arming explosives, as it happens. Putting detonators on, you've got to do it quite quickly. One of the many interesting aspects of my job. Okay, that's that one done. So all I need is a dab of solder just to hold both wires together. You don't need to flood it with solder. Okay. Now, here's the question. Make sure this is cool enough before you put the next heat shrink over, because if it starts shrinking as you put it over, you're in doo-doo. Let's hope I've got the size right here and it'll actually fit over. I've got a feeling I'm going to have a problem. Come on, here you go. Oh, just about. Like there. Please. Thank you. That's exactly where I wanted to get to. Okay. This is a bit aggressive really for heat shrink. You're better off with actual heat gun rather than the butane torch. Let's keep it very light, otherwise you end up burning the cable. And then belt and braces. I've got another piece here. Just going to go right up to there. Okay. Now, piece de resistance is what is hiding up here, and hopefully will come down over everything. Now, last but not least, we're going to put some self-amalgamating around there. This then will be around like this. So this is completely enclosed in UV protected plastic. Got my nice piece of HDPF there. So before we do this, we are going to get the old lano coat out, because underneath here is a bit corroded. Now, this is where I need another pair of hands. If only you could come out that video camera and help me. Okay, Mr. DIY Stanley rivet gun, are you up to this? I don't think it is. I think this is good for aluminium rivets. It ain't good for stainless steel. Stephen! I need your rivet gun. Okay, now we've got a serious rivet gun. There we go. I hate this stuff, but I'm going to put some of this horrible Dulac onto these two rivets and two with Lanacoat, and we'll see which one over the years gets more or less corrosion. Okay, now we're going to put the wire hanger on. In you go. And damn well stay in there. Now, have I chosen the right rivets? Yes, I think I need to buy myself one of these. Same situation this side. Liner coat, liner coat. Don't you love liner coat? There we go. Hokey cokey. Before I do tie wrap, I have this to put on. Self-amalgamating tape. Self-amalgamating tape, if you don't know it, is wonderful stuff. It is rubber and it sticks to itself and makes an amazing seal around whatever you're putting it around. So I'm just going to make sure we completely seal this up. So this end of this tube is sealed right into here, and this end of this tube is sealed here, and then the other end will go into the mast. So that electrical joint is now completely and utterly watertight. I'm afraid I've been neglecting the videoing a little bit because the battery ran out. While you've been on charge, I have pinned this down like this to this little bar. I have re-threaded completely the wind instrument, so we now have it protected in this supposedly UV plastic. Amazingly, I'm getting quite skilled at this. I drilled out the stainless steel screw that was stuck in there, and I've put a spiral insert in so we can actually put a bolt in there, because these will need to be tied with a cable clamp so that the weight is not hanging on the fittings but on the cable clamp. The weight of this cable 80 foot down the mast is quite a lot. And on this side I installed, same again on there, the little cable tie, I installed one of these. I managed to drill this out and put a threaded insert in, and this one I put in, but I'm not particularly happy with this one. It's bending a bit there, so I think that one might come out. And then from inside the mast I took this piece out which holds the forestay. That's going to just get cleaned up and go back in with some sort of liner coat or protection. It looks like it's got something on it anyway. As you can see, it's fairly corroded around this bit. So that's out. This is where the spinnaker guide was. You can see that whatever they had underneath is just completely disintegrated. So basically everything is coming off the top of the mast and being redone, but all for the good. In the next videos, we change all the seals in the hydraulic outhaul piston, drop the rudder and service the lower rudder bearings, take a look inside the linear drives of the autohelm, make modifications to the swim platform, hydraulic motor, change the impeller in the deck wash pump, replumb all the pipework under the water heater and water manifolds, fix some wiring in the pedestal and add a light dimmer switch, remove the Volvo exhaust elbow and service the turbo, have someone come aboard to polish the diesel in the tanks, add a chain deflector in the anchor locker, and refurbish the gas and anchor lockers. All in a day's work on Cloudy Bay. See you next time.